Welcome to the 12 Ronnies podcast. 12 Ronnies helps inventors and innovators to connect with entrepreneurs and mentors to create commercial teams and then get their product to market successfully. To find out more information, go to www.12ronnies.com and follow the links below. I'm Jake Shaw, and back in October 2019, 12 Ronnies attended the Like Minds Festival of Ideas at Exeter Castle. In between the numerous masterclasses and great keynote speeches that you can still hear in the background of this recording, I spoke with Minter Dale, who talked about living and working in over 80 countries, his career from tennis pro through to the board of L'Oreal, the importance of culture and cultural engagement in business, getting fulfillment and fulfilling jobs, and the emotional story of the recovery of his grandfather's Annapolis graduation ring. I'm here at the Exeter Castle and I'm at the Like Minds Ideas Festival, and now I'm joined by His Eminence, Minter Dale. Where did you come from then to here?
So 55 years old and I'm still trying to figure it out, Jake. I have changed countries 15 times. I've changed homes 34 times. I have travelled to 80 countries, worked in 60 of them, and I feel like change is my middle name. I've done industries like paying as a tennis pro, working in a zoo, an aquarium. I've started 3 companies, 2 of which failed fantastically, and I worked 16 years in L'Oreal, cosmetics company, because I'm really worth it. Otherwise,
did you come up with that?
No, I think that one came up with someone else. That was my boss. Otherwise, I am an American French citizen living in London mostly, and happy to be in Exeter.
That's a brilliant story, doing all these different kind of jobs, being a citizen, if you like, of almost of the globe. How do you help people?
Well, so my gig is to move people and to make the world a better place. And so what's important in there is obviously I need to work with people who are willing to move and have an ounce of desire to improve the world. So I really don't specialize in any industry. I work with people who have the right attitude. And I like to think it's about changing mindsets. So when I go into an organization, they usually have a business problem, like I need to be more productive or I need more efficiency. And then I figure out how, amongst other things, they'll need to change their mindsets and how to have that trickle down, cascade down into their whole company, and include how they relate to their shareholders, relate to their suppliers, and of course customers.
At what point does a company know? When's the when to call Saul moment? That's
a great question. The truth is they don't usually necessarily call me up. It's not like I'm someone famous or anything like that. But what I do get up in conversations is, well, we have a challenge. We have like a business issue, and our sales force isn't effective enough, or gosh, our top line is sinking. We need to pep it up. So these business type of problems. I'm not someone who fixes the business problems. I generally look underneath and say, well, they have an issue of mindset and culture. And that's why things aren't working quite as well as they want on the top. And so I like to then go in and I understand the personalities involved. I typically work with the C-suites and the senior executive teams and try to get in understanding. Since I worked in big business for a majority of my life in the profession, I have an understanding of the bureaucratic issues and the infighting and the challenges of policies and procedures and the different subsidiaries and how they're fixed up and how those things encroach on making for a fluid and agile system. So I get in, understand those elements, and then I help them through. And the way I like to do it is to have fun. So to begin with, it's about trust. They believe that I'm able to do it. And once I've developed a stronger trust with the rest of the team, then I bring in fun ways. And the whole thing is about acting. And of course, I'm not talking about theatrical acting. I'm actually about getting into action. So generally, when I start off, the very first thing I do is not going to introduce myself. I'll start by getting them to act, getting them involved. So I get them out of their chairs, out of their comfort zone, and I get them to do things like act like children, remember to be silly, and to have fun in business, because it can't all be about efficiency and productivity.
So it's interesting you say that, because I think one of the things talking to everybody here at the festival is this idea of culture being a far more important thing than perhaps people might think. I come back at you one thing that you'll go into sort of these bright sort of digital companies where everybody's having great fun and they bring cakes in and stuff like that. You've been in that corporate structure. Is there any corporations left that still don't understand what you're talking about?
Well, yes. In fact, so the problem is a lot of people write about it or talk about it, but they're not actually doing it. And especially when the crunch time comes, then that just flies out the window. And you don't see many people in these nap pods at businesses because, well, they're working too hard to do that. And it doesn't shine well on them. There's no sort of good motivation around that. So I actually think that most companies, especially the larger ones, by nature are full of apathy, and 70% of employees are known to be disengaged with their work. So while there are plenty banner companies that are announcing how wonderfully motivating and wonderful the environment is, reality is it's not there. And too many people are still working just because it's a job, as opposed to something that's fulfilling. And when I talk about fun, I really don't talk about laughter, ha-ha. It's really about getting to more fulfillment and feeling that their jobs are meaningful. And too many companies are still more interested in how the shareholders are getting paid, whether it's the owner who runs the company or the shareholders who are agonizing over the next quarterly earnings.
But there's another side to Minter Dale.
Yes, indeed.
And it was one of the first things we ever talked about, which was my background is making films and documentaries and things like that. And I came across a film called The Last Ring Home.
That's it. Well, so, I mean, this is a 25-year story, and ultimately it led me to understand much more about myself and my family, and so that's what I encourage people to do. My story is about my grandfather, after whom I was named, and he was a man of tremendous privilege. His family had difficult times in the Depression, and he went off and became a United States Navy officer. Was captured in May of 1942 and suffered 2.5 years as a POW of the Japanese. He was killed unceremoniously in the most miserable of conditions, and then his Annapolis ring disappeared and was found 17 years later in another country. He was killed in Taiwan. The ring was found in Korea. The person who found the ring knew somebody who was the driver to the admiral of the Southeast Pacific Fleet, and that man happened to be my grandfather's best friend. And so it's just this remarkable serendipitous element to the story. And so it's like these ideas, really my whole life is about connecting dots. And this film the story ended up being a crystallization of how amazingly connected we all are. And if you just keep looking, you keep your eyes open, peeled, and listen, you'll see these things come to life. And that's what this story is about. It's a love story, actually. It's a kind of deeply tragic love story as well, because as you know, the ring then got stolen.
Minter, where do people see this film?
So it's on YouTube and on iTunes, The Last Ring Home. There's a site that has all the information. Of course, there's the book as well, which is on Amazon.
And where do people find you, Minter?
I blog regularly at minterdial.com, my eponymous site. I also have a podcast myself, which I've been doing for 10 years weekly. It's called Minter Dialogue. And otherwise, I guess on Twitter at mdial. You can follow me on LinkedIn. Otherwise.
Minter Dale, thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Thank you for listening. Please sign up to 12ronnies.com and subscribe to our groups and YouTube channel so you never miss a podcast from 12ronnies.com.